Well, hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Church Leadership Lab, where our goal is to have conversations that help empower healthy churches. My name is Scott, and I'm half of your hosting goodness, and Casey is the other half. Hello, Casey.
I hope. I like that.
Yeah, hosting good. I didn't quite know how to phrase that, but we'll just call it hosting goodness.
I hope I'm half of the goodness.
Yeah,
at least a third.
You are.
Thanks.
And we're excited today to have Jenni Catron on the podcast. I'm going to give just kind of a quick bio for Jenni, and then we'll get into it. Jenni's a leadership coach and consultant. She's the author of several books, including The 4 Dimensions of Extraordinary Leadership. She's also the founder and CEO of the Foresight Group, where she consults with businesses, churches, nonprofits on leadership, organizational health. She has served in executive leadership roles herself on church staff and now travels speaking on leadership, team culture, and strategy. Jenni, thanks so much. We're excited to have you on Church Leadership Lab.
I am thrilled to be with you all. So thanks I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Well, we do like to start out. This is kind of the question we like to ask, because there's the public bio that everyone has that is going to make it on the back of the book or the conference, brochure. I don't know. They don't do conference brochures, conference websites. That's probably more accurate. That's
some
more
places
accurate.
Probably do brochures for all we know, but
yeah,
and they're lovely.
And they're lovely.
They're lovely.
Casey, thank you for looking out for everybody. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. That's the goodness.
Yes. But there's always something in the bio that doesn't necessarily make that, but all your friends and family would know about you. So for you, what is that thing?
Oh, this is good. I was trying to think of what would be that thing, when you've been speaking and writing and for so long, so much of your world is public. But okay, here's my thing. I eat like a 5-year-old. I'm just be really honest about I have the palate of a 5-year-old. I eat peanut butter almost every day, peanut butter almost every day. I don't like dressings and condiments and slimy stuff. And I really love pizza. So my nieces and nephews, coming to Aunt Jenni's house is like everybody's joy, because we're going to eat pizza and bake chocolate chip cookies. And so I really do. I eat like a 5-year-old, which I feel like is really embarrassing, but is kind of true. The whole family would agree.
I love it.
You don't even know what to say, Scott. You're like, what?
No. No, what I thought. So I thought two things. One, my kids would be like, this is great. Everything you said, but two,
going out with her. Yes.
But two, let's be honest. Every time I clear my kids' plates, I'm like, any extras left over for dad here? Because it's delicious. And I think anybody who has kids, nieces, nephews, or deals with just children eating meals, always like, I'll gladly finish off the PB&J or the mac and cheese for you. So
for sure.
Respect.
I look forward to my niece and nephew coming over, because it's an opportunity for me to eat the chicken nuggets and the French fries, and because why make something separate for myself, right? So it's mildly embarrassing. If I go out to a nice business dinner and I'm I'm ordering something really simple. I'm not a foodie. I am I'm a kid.
With all the books that you've written, I would like to suggest a children's cookbook that is not for kids. It's for all the adults. Or I really kind of
whoa.
But I think we should all suggest our favorite guilty pleasure kid thing that we would like to be in the children's cookbook that's really for adults.
That's
all right,
really
what's
Casey,
yours?
This is
Casey?
I think you just came up with a great idea.
Yeah.
I will
trademark Jenni and Casey.
I will provide content, and I will gladly be the taste test for all this. I'm in, man.
This is good. I love this. Okay.
I love it.
All right. Things come out of the lab here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, I think we could keep talking about food, but I know that people probably didn't hit play on this to hear that. So we'll jump into it. I know that so we talk to a lot of church leaders. This is what this podcast is for. And I know that the past 2 years in church leadership have really been unprecedented, been difficult. And people, often talk about how COVID exposed a lot of things. And so for you, Jenni, as you, work with tons of leaders, both inside the church, outside the marketplace, what are some of the biggest leadership gaps that you've seen exposed from that time?
Yeah. I think you kind of hit a little bit of what has been true for so many teams and leaders is like, just the pressure of the pandemic in this case, but any organization or any team under stress, it really reveals your weaknesses, right? And so I think what happened for so many churches and organizations is that we really recognized, just some of those leadership gaps and then the ones that I particularly notice are related to staffing and team dynamics, because what we found with all of the upheaval of the Great Resignation and then just the ability to hire and retain staff through all of this, it really exposed a couple of things in my mind. It exposed the need to equip our mid-level leaders better. This is one of the things that we are seeing significantly right now, because what happened is with so much shuffling, whether it was people choosing to exit the organization or the organization having to make some adjustments because of, different factors, it kind of squeezed the staff in the middle. You either got promoted into more responsibility, which basically meant just take on more with, less team, more responsibility, right? Because it was survival. So I'm not criticizing leaders because you were making decisions about how do we keep surviving in just unknown circumstances. And so some of your best team members were just given more responsibility or thrown into bigger roles, and responsibility or more staff that they were supposed to manage. So there's this pressure cooker on mid-level leaders of and having to almost buffer what the team was feeling and then what leadership is directing. And so mid-level leaders have just felt that pinch. They have felt that pressure. And I think that's become like a really glaring issue. And then kind of hand in hand with that is I think it's also revealed just the need for a true understanding of what healthy organizational culture is. So I talk a lot about leadership and organizational culture. So all my answers will come back to that in some form or fashion. But the recognition that for a lot of teams, when you're in a good season, and I think, by and large, the economy was strong, churches had kind of figured out growth, like not all and not exclusively, but by and large, we had a good understanding of how to grow our churches. And so we were just kind of thriving in that. And as a result, when a team is winning, the culture feels good. If a team no longer feels like they're winning, all of a sudden you start to second guess everything about your organizational culture and your team dynamics. And so what I think it's done is cause us to ask deeper questions about what really makes a healthy culture. It's because the healthiest cultures are ultimately revealed under pressure, right? The unhealth of a culture is revealed under pressure. And so those are the two things that we're noticing and we're responding to with the organizations that we serve, is like the better equipping of those mid-level leaders who have just felt that pressure point. And then the recognition of, okay, what does great culture actually mean? And then how do we invest in it? How do we build it? So those are a couple of things that we're just kind of noticing and helping teams work through right now.
The culture piece, I'm interested to dive in a little bit deeper in this, because one of the things that I think is challenging, especially if I think of a church in particular that, let's say, has a senior leader and a couple staff, it seems like if there is a culture problem there, understanding and recognizing that can be difficult, because I think sometimes you need maybe a really strong leader who is, like you said, that mid-level, leader who's willing to say the hard thing and to bring up, hey, this is not healthy. This is not good. This is not working. Or you need a really self-aware leader. And so how, like, when there is that issue, how do you find out? I mean, that's something that I think I'm really just curious to hear your thoughts on. How do you realize you got a problem with the culture?
Yeah, it's so tricky. I mean, and for the reasons you just named, Scott, it's that one of the things I always caution, because I work with a lot of like executive level leaders, senior pastors, et cetera. And the thing I always caution them is like, your culture is never as good as you think it is, right? Because when we're in the most senior leadership seat, the air feels better here. Like it just does. And so it's really critical for, senior leaders to recognize part of the reason why culture feels better for you is because you hold the reins. You're able to direct decisions and, the direction of the organization more so than staff members in other levels of the organization. And so it's really important that leaders recognize, hey, it is actually hard for me to get a good pulse on the culture because people are going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to have difficulty speaking up. And so the more a leader is willing to have just a little bit of humble curiosity about the reality of our culture, the better it's going to ultimately serve them. So as Maxwell would say, everything rises and falls on leadership, right? Like to the degree that the leader is willing to ask the questions, is how, it is going to impact the honesty that they get about their culture. So, I've had a number of people come to me that maybe are somewhere in mid-level leadership, and they see the culture dynamics and they've tried to raise them in one way or another, and it just kind of falls flat, and they're so frustrated because they have such a heart to help shape their culture, but their leaders just aren't listening. And so unless the leader's willing to really listen, I think you're going to stay a little stuck. Now, my caveat to that is to that mid-level leader who's coming to me saying, hey, I really would love for our culture to be healthier, and I'm frustrated because my leaders don't see it. My encouragement to them is do what you can for your group, not trying to be disrespectful or out of alignment with the senior leadership of your organization, but you can produce within the team you lead, whether it be staff or volunteers, you can model the things that you think reflect a healthy culture. And so while you might not be able to help influence that up, hopefully you will over time, at least try to be the healthiest leader you can be and help build the best culture you can for the team that you have influence over. It doesn't solve all the dynamics within the organization, but do what you can for the group that you lead. So it really comes down to the leader's willingness to get honest about it. And then it's okay, let's get some feedback. This is often where we get invited in to say, hey, help us get a pulse on this, because they may not tell us truthfully. We can do employee assessments all day long, but if the employees don't feel safe answering those questions honestly, then you still can get not a accurate reflection of the true culture. So it takes some digging and it takes some work. And the healthier the culture is, the more honesty you'll get. The more unhealthy a culture is, the harder it is to really get good feedback about it. So it's a complicated dynamic. I don't know. I would be curious what you guys observe in that case as well.
No, this is going to be so cheesy. I will admit that right now. As you were talking about not being able to feel the challenges when you're in the leadership seat, I got this really weird image of an airplane. Like, you're the pilot, you've got controls on the whole thing. So to you, it's smooth sailing. You're not the one sitting back by the restrooms where all the turbulence and all the junk and the crying baby, like, you are delightfully unaware of how just chaotic it is.
That's really
when you're
good,
not
Casey.
in that seat. So I have this horrible mental image of like just in the worst possible seat on the bus or on the whatever, and going, man, you don't know what it's like in my shoes. But then you said something that I kind of pictured again, like, where am I on that plane or whatever? And then I do have a little tiny circle of influence, even in the junky seats. So I can't just walk up to the cockpit and be like, I got this. Like, look how great of a pilot I am. But I might be the pilot of like my little horrible seat section. Like, if I can boost morale or if I can share my snacks, whatever I can do in that little area, if that gives me a tiny little piece of control that I don't have over the entire adventure,
That's
at
right.
least I've got that. And I think it's really hard for me to lose sight of what do I have leadership over, even if it's not title leadership. It may be inherited leadership or just, hey, you've been here a hot minute, so people look up to you and you don't even realize
Yes.
it.
Yep.
So what is my little tiny section, and can I lead that really well, even if, the plane's, in flames, or so it feels like. But
Yeah.
I got all these wonderful...
Yeah, I love that visual. Like I might steal that, but it's so true.
Do that.
Yeah. It, what can I do in that place of influence that I have? That's one of the things we talk about all the time with leaders, is that leadership begins with influence. And influence is this understanding of where do I have that influence? It might be just because of my seat or my role. It might be because of my tenure, just the connections and friendships that I have, whatever that might be. But influence by definition means the power to change or affect others. Like that is significant. I often say sacred work, that we have the power to affect or change the lives of others. So those people sitting in your little junky seats at the back of the airplane, how you're showing up, they're going to take their cues from you. So you can either get irritated because the leadership isn't seeing what you're experiencing, or you can choose to say, you know what, I'm going to do my best to help us put the best perspective we can on this, and not be ignorant of the dynamics, but just what's the better way we can look at this, or how we can respond to it to help us move forward together. And that's super significant, because one of the other things I think is important to know about culture is that every person on the team influences culture, right? Like leaders have disproportionate influence on culture, like because of the sheer nature of their power within the organization, so to speak. But every person is shaping the culture. You've all seen it. You've felt it. Like when you have a team member who is just not aligned, doesn't value what you value, and like the weight and the frustration that creates in an organization when you have a team member who just isn't with you. I mean, it just brings the whole team down. And so every person is influencing, shaping culture. So if we can understand that and own that and go, well, how can I positively contribute? One of my favorite questions is, what do we look like at our best? Right? Like as a team, what do we look like at our best? And how can I help contribute to that? And my influence may be small or it may be great, but how can I contribute to helping us be what we look like at our best? And that can go a long way in helping shape a culture and in actually improve the culture that you're a part of.
I love that.
I was thinking about like the things we've been talking about, even that analogy, Casey, because like I think about the way that, so if you're let's like play it out. If you're a senior leader, you're flying the plane, so you have air traffic control in your ear, you got your hands on the, I don't think it's a steering wheel in an airplane, the throttle.
Sure,
is that how they fly? I don't
no
whatever
idea.
That thing is.
I picked the wrong analogy. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, you're directing the plane, like so the turbulence is ahead. You actually are able to control. But I think of like the way that you feel sitting in the seat by the bathroom or whatever is like, and I've felt this on airplanes, I can do nothing. Like, no, it doesn't matter how hard I try, I can do nothing in this scenario. And I think that that's a good reminder for senior leaders. Like your people might be feeling some of that. They see what's going on. They're feeling it. But they have this sense of like, what I can do is limited. And so just understanding that your leadership of them means understanding where they're at, asking those questions. Say, how is this feeling? How is what I'm doing, right? How is my movement of the plane feeling to those riding in the back? And I just had that picture as well as you were saying that, because I think that's really important.
Well, and I think
it takes a lot of empathy.
For sure. Yeah. And Scott, I love what you said there so much, because I'm thinking of the times, not to overuse the analogy, but the times when I've been on a plane and the pilot is actually informing you ahead of time what's coming, right? To help you anticipate, hey, this is coming, and how how calming that is versus you just hit the turbulence with no warning and it really throws you and shocks you, right? So like the best leaders are thinking, what is my team asking? What is my team wondering? What is my team dealing with? And how can I at least address it? I might not be able to solve it. I can't solve that the turbulence is coming, but I can communicate that it's coming so they understand, hey, I'm aware, and it builds kind of trust that, okay, my leader's aware. They know it. They might not be able to fix it or even change it right now, but they know it. So they're addressing it. There's so much that when, Casey, it's the empathy point you just made, right? Like when a leader is thinking on behalf of their team, there's so much they can do to build trust and to actually help shape the culture in a healthy way, regardless of if they can actually fix the issues right now.
Right.
Obviously, part of the leader's responsibility is to help navigate some of those issues. But sometimes as a leader, we don't know. I mean, I think that's what I've seen so many leaders wrestling with these past couple of years is the leader feels like they're on their heels trying to figure out what in the world is going on. I don't even know how to direct us forward. And then in the absence of even just acknowledging that, they actually create a bigger divide and chasm with the team because the team's like, why aren't they talking about this? Do they not see it? Do they not understand it? Are they not paying attention? Are they just clueless? Do they not care? Do they not recognize what I'm navigating here in my seat? You know, and so again, the more a leader is just paying attention to what are the questions my team is asking, and then trying to at least acknowledge those, that goes so far in helping build trust and build culture in organizations.
Well, Jenni, that's a perfect segue. So I'm going to get off the airplane. I'm going to help all of us get off the airplane. Not that we can't return back later, but I'm both thrilled and mortified that I brought us onto this airplane that none of us could escape.
I loved it.
I mean, here's the deal. You two are invited to my junkie seats in the airplane, and we will always have good music. We will have plenty of snacks, kid-friendly snacks, and like it'll no matter what, we'll have a little party. It's fine.
Perfect.
Jenni, one of the things that I love about your personal culture is you do such a great job with your own social media through Foresight Group and Culture Conference. And Scott knows this. I geek out about things that are practical. I love a good motivational quote, but I really want to go, yeah, but how? Okay, but what? And you do a really good job of talking about things, but also asking really good questions and really kind of making it tactical. So that appeals to my side. That I go, I need to know, what is the recipe? I want the recipe, and you're really good about that. So you wrote recently about 5 questions that staff are asking. And I'm going to read those and then ask you which one you think is missing most from the pastoral level. So again, the questions that staff are asking: why does this matter? Where do I fit? What is expected of me? How am I doing? And do I belong? It's a lot of like personal things, but all of those are really, really important. What is the one, if you had to pick, that you think pastors miss the most?
Yeah. Gosh. So that's so hard to pick just one because I see so many of them. But I think that I would say the second one, where do I fit? Because I feel like particularly in the church, we can have a habit of not wanting to be clear about roles and expectations and helping people understand their place within the work we're doing. And again, as leaders, we can assume they get it. Like, oh, well, you're the student pastor. Well, yes. And what exactly does that mean? And how does that fit with the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish? I'm over here doing my student pastor thing, and I'm feeling really disconnected from the bigger church ministry, and so that question of where do I fit, I think is such a critical one, because it's a very practical question of like, I just want to know where my seat is on the bus. Now we'll get on a bus instead of an airplane, right?
Got it.
I just want to know, where do I fit? Like, how do I fit in? And beyond just like my title and my role, but then like, where do I fit as far as like my ability to speak into direction or strategy or the big picture of where we're going? And sometimes we're reluctant to do that because we don't want to disappoint people. I was recently talking to somebody, and they had a new team member who started, and the team member was frustrated that they weren't in the executive team meetings. And I'm like, well, did you clarify that they're not on the executive team? Well, I kind of thought that was obvious. I was like, well, it is obvious to you, but this individual came in with the expectation that they're going to be a part of the executive team. And then they've been really frustrated and disappointed that they have not been invited in certain meetings or whatever. And it's just a clarity thing, right? It's like, I say this all the time, that clarity is the chief indicator of culture, right? Like, we owe our teams as much clarity as we can possibly provide. And so answering that question of where do you fit? What's your seat? It doesn't mean that that's your seat for forever or that you would never be on the executive team. It just means, like, right now, this is the role I need you to play. And kind of coupled with this is every role in the organization is critical, and not every one of them can be the senior pastor, or not every one of them can be on the executive team. Like, every function to help our church or our organization flourish is critical to achieving the mission, or we wouldn't be paying that role, or we wouldn't be, putting a key volunteer into that seat, right? Like, every seat is so important. And yet sometimes we're not clear enough about that seat and helping people understand where they fit, so that they understand how they contribute to the picture. I'm a big advocate of org structures. I think every organization needs a clear organizational structure that helps everybody understand where they fit. And the reason being, so that structure needs to be designed to support your strategy. Like, we have this mission and we need a strategy to accomplish the mission. Well, every role we should see clearly how it helps us accomplish that mission and that strategy. And so then if everybody sees their fit and, like, oh, here's this picture, this is the team, this is the design of the team that allows us to put feet to our mission, right? To, like, actually take action on this mission that we have as a church or a ministry. Okay, now I get it. Here's my seat. Here's the piece I need to play to help us accomplish the mission. The clearer we are about that, it alleviates some questions, and it helps people settle into, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I feel like that's what the other ones are really critical, but I think some of those we answer better. But I think this one is often it's a bigger question mark than leaders give it credit for most of the time.
I think that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. If I know where I fit, some of those other questions automatically answer themselves better. Then if I know where I fit, I know what's expected. I should know how I'm doing, because I know the expectations of what I should be doing. Do I belong? Like, they all kind of go together. If that one fits in, it's like everything else can kind of at least have a path to fall in line after it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why it's a little hard, for me to, like, put them in order, but there is a cascading effect from it. So if we're really clear on the fit piece, then we're likely clearer on the expectations, and then hopefully we're actually having good conversations about how am I doing, getting good feedback and so forth. Yeah.
I think too, the thing that sticks out to me about these questions is and I think this is true of a lot of the things that we either communicate, the expectation, like, if we don't, and when I say we, what I'm saying, if you as a leader do not answer those questions, it's not that they won't be answered; they'll be answered by the staff person. They're going to fill in those blanks, fill it in, because you have to answer those. Those have to be answered somehow, and I think that it seems like that's too where where maybe the line is around leading well and leading not so well is, are you understanding this and then answering those for and with people, or do they have to fill in those blanks, in which then you allow them to do that, however they've sort of come to those conclusions.
I was going to say, then they fill it in, they kind of make their own story or narrative, and then we wonder why they don't feel aligned, right? Because they're trying to create significance and meaning in their work. We all want and there's a ton of research coming out, especially post-pandemic, that's saying meaning and purpose matters more than ever to employees. And so when they come into your organization, they come on staff at your church, they are looking to align their personal passion and mission with the mission of the organization. So that's beautiful, especially in the church. We have a leg up on being able to help people marry their personal passion with a mission, in a significant way. But then if we're not answering the question, if we're not clarifying then like more clearly their role and their responsibility and their fit inside of the organization, they're going to fill in those gaps themselves. And if that's not actually aligned with what our expectations are, or you get that expectation gap that creates the tension and mistrust, and it just kind of spirals. It spirals out from there. And if they're not, some of them will just create their own storyline and fill it in, and then we kind of go, oh wait, whoa, why did they have that expectation of what that job was? Or they can't quite define it, so they move on to the next one, and we're frustrated because we're like, we can't keep team members. Well, probably because you're not providing the clarity they need to succeed. And so they're going to move on to the next opportunity that feels like it might be the thing that answers that question, that helps them find meaning and belonging in their work. I just feel like it's such a huge opportunity. Like that's the stuff we can do, right? So there's so much that, again, is often beyond our control, but this is the simple stuff that answering these questions allows us to connect and engage with an employees at a deeper level. And I think ultimately leads to a better retention, and stronger team. Sorry, I can keep rambling on this stuff because I love it so much.
No, I love this and could not agree with you more. I'm really, really bad about filling in the gaps. If it's not spoken, my brain goes 10 steps ahead. Oh, I must not be what they expected. I must not be good enough. I must not have the right skills. And I'm like 10 steps down the self-deprivation trail just because it's a conversation that didn't take place. Where it's like, time out. Nobody said that. And I can't just say, hey, why wasn't I in that meeting? Am I horrible? Do I belong in the crappy seats on the plane? Because I just go there. But you're exactly right. It's just by maybe a lack of communication. I love what you said. That's something we can fix.
Right.
Hopefully. And we should. But man, what a missed opportunity. You're absolutely right. But I bear responsibility to check myself, stop answering the questions internally before just asking them out loud with my actual team. That's maybe a better place to start, not my inner dialogue.
No, but I love that you bring that up, Casey, because I think that's what most of us do. And most of us are going to fill it in with a negative storyline. Oh, I'm not meeting the expectation. And then that puts us in the defensive, right? Then we're defensive and we're not giving our best because we're fearful of, in some way, we must not be doing something that we should be doing, but we don't even know what we should be doing because nobody's actually clarified it for us. Right. So I love that you shared that just personally, because I think we all do a lot of that. And that's, and it burns so much time and energy and keeps us from actually doing the very thing we all want to be doing.
I mean, it's either one or the other. It's either extreme self-doubt or absurd confidence where you're like, I am the best thing ever. Or I'm a horrible person. How have I not been fired yet? There's no healthy common ground unless we just have good, healthy conversations. That should not be hard.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Oh. Well, one thing that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, Jenni, having both spent time in church, on church staffs, and then working with so many, what is, when you think of a healthy church, what's one essential component that a healthy church has to have?
I mean, I immediately go to a healthy team, a healthy staff team. So that might feel, just overly simplistic based upon what I've said so far, but I really believe it. I think so goes the leader, so goes the team, so goes the church, right? There's just a cascading effect of that. One of the encouragements that I have for senior pastors is your staff is actually your first congregation, right? And they're the first team that you need to lead and serve, because then they are in turn leading and serving the volunteer teams and the rest of the congregation. And so often we kind of skip over that and focus on serving the congregation. And I get it. So I'm not criticizing that, because I think that's a natural kind of, just way we operate inside of ministry. But I think the healthier your team is, the more you're investing in developing them. And my 4 Dimensions books talks about how as leaders, we need to lead relationally, spiritually, strategically, and with vision. And that if leaders can lead, can recognize the significance of leading from those four things, like first with my team, if I can relationally connect and invest in my team, if I'm spiritually providing direction and leadership that's helping them stay spiritually grounded and healthy, if I'm strategically giving them the next steps, telling them where they fit, and all these organizational pieces of the puzzle, and I'm keeping the vision and our mission front and center, right? Like, the more I'm equipping that team to be effective and healthy, then the more equipped they are to serve our congregation and our community well. And so I really think the healthiest churches, you see a really healthy team, not a perfect team, but a healthy team.
Yeah, that's really good. So we do this thing called the Final Five. I want to jump in that in a second, but before we do, I would love to hear just kind of some of the heart, some of the vision behind the Foresight Group, and kind of why that was started, and sort of some of the what you hope it accomplishes, that sort of thing. If you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, so backstory is I spent about 10 years in the Christian music business before I went into ministry full time. And ministry was kind of an unexpected, just kind of surprise that God kind of, put in my pathway. And I really I have such a heart for the health of teams and the health of leaders. And that's what I discovered as I spent about a decade in the corporate world, but in a Christian division of a corporate organization. And then I spent about 12 years in full-time staff ministry at a couple of very large churches. And the thread through all of them was this passion for, if the leader's healthy and the team is healthy, then the ability to achieve a mission is exponential. But so often I would see a struggling leader, I would see a team that was in shambles, and yet I would see this organization, this church, with such a heart and a deep conviction and so much possibility and of influence in their community, but just the inability to actually take action on it, I think, in the way that they could if the leader and the team were stronger. And so Foresight was really started out of just an overflow of that. As I was in my ministry roles, I was doing a lot of writing and speaking on all things leadership. And I really felt like launching Foresight would be the opportunity for me and my team to just focus on the health of the leader and the health of the team. And then as a byproduct, our ability to carry out the mission. Hopefully we're helping propel that forward in the leaders we serve. So we do a lot of one-on-one coaching for leaders. We do some group coaching for teams. And then we come in and we do a big diagnostic on how's your team, how's the health of your team, what's your culture look like, and how can we help you take that in a healthy and positive direction. There's no perfect team. There's no perfect culture. We're a bunch of messy humans trying to do life together and figure it out. But sometimes an outside voice and perspective can just be a great resource in that. And so that's the thing that I think, Scott, really drives me, is it is such a gift and a privilege to come alongside leaders, to be trusted to speak into them and into their teams. And that is something I hope I don't take for granted. I don't think I do. It's such a conviction of mine that it is a gift to be able to partner with leaders in some of our most tender places. The relationships of leaders and teams are so critical. And it's often the thing that we don't want to acknowledge as struggling. And so that's where we get to come in. We get to come in and say, hey, let us be a partner and a resource to support you, you as a leader and you as a team. And when we get to do that, I feel like we're doing what God's called us to do. So there's a statistic, and I'm going to butcher it because I don't have it memorized and right in front of me, but Barna did some research. It was a couple years ago now, and I think it was something like 86% of millennials and Gen Z said that we're in a leadership crisis because there are no good leaders right now. That was the exact wording, is there are no good leaders. And if Foresight can change that trajectory, I feel like we're doing what God's called us to do. Change that trajectory for the positive, by the way. I think that's probably assumed. But if that stat can be that, people believe 86% say that we have amazing leaders, then I feel like we would do what God's called us to do.
Yeah. If it was like, hey, if we could change that stat, if we can, if we can go the other way, I'd be like, I'm really confused at the conversation we just had. Yeah.
No, right.
No,
right.
that's awesome. I mean, it's certainly something that we are, we align with and love seeing. I think, both Casey and I have experience in ministry, in leadership, and your work is really needed.
Thank you.
And Jenni, you didn't mention it, so I'm going to shamelessly plug it for you. You also just launched a women's leadership structure.
Yes.
I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to, but I love your intentionality again, and like your practical, tactical tools, the value that you've created specifically for women development and leadership. Seen as how I am one, like a little biased, but women in senior leadership that are truly, truly trained and equipped so that they can lead not just with confidence or not just to fill a demographic checkbox, but because they were truly skilled and equipped and trained well. And you guys train well.
Thank you for that.
I love what you guys do.
Yeah. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. Yes.
It's awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's do our final 5, and then we'll give people links and all that because I want to make sure that people know where to get more information, connect with you and all that. But we'll jump into the final 5. The first one, one book, and you have to pick one. It's hard. One book that you'd recommend to church leaders.
Yeah, I have several, but I would say this one. This is one I go back to over and over. And I read this when I was in a really busy season as a church leader. But it's Ruth Haley Barton's Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership. Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership by Ruth Haley Barton. What I love about it is she looks at the life of Moses and just like looks at his leadership journey and the challenges and the crucibles of ministry that he kind of found himself in. And then she just makes so much application to us in ministry today. It's a book I pick up almost every year and reread because it's just the richness in making you kind of just ask yourself really good questions about how's your soul as a leader, especially in ministry, is like super, super powerful.
That's been a common theme of how's your soul?
How's your soul? It is. Yeah.
I don't know.
I know, right?
I have a book to go check. That's good. I'm not sure.
In ministry, a lot of times you're not paying attention to it because you're so busy doing ministry that you're forgetting to actually minister to yourself or to your team.
Totally.
And so, I mean, just how are you spiritually stewarding yourself first, right?
Yeah.
And being faithful to your relationship with God as being relationship number one. And then but ministry is so consuming. And so I think that's the thing where that discipline of like checking in on, okay, where am I and where am I with God is such an important piece of healthy leadership.
Yeah.
Jenni, what is the last thing that you read or listened to, whether it's podcast or music on whatever, Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to? You have to be honest, no matter how embarrassing.
This is good. Okay. So podcast. So I don't listen to a lot of music. Weirdly enough, I was in the music business for so long and now I don't do a lot of listening. You know what? The last podcast, so I'm pulling it up right as we talk, is the Morning Five, Michael Ware. He has a quick little, it's a little news podcast called The Morning Five. And I listen to it every day. And what I love is Michael's a believer. And so he opens up with a reading of scripture and then he shares the top 5 things that day, newsworthy, so it's your little blast of news. And then he ends with the Lord's Prayer. And so I just love kind of that combination of scripture and a little bit of news. So that's one of the podcasts I listen to every day. So it's the last one I listen to.
I think we need a little prayer to handle the news. So that's good. That works together.
Michael's got this just really calming voice that it's he just makes you feel like the world's not about to explode, but here's what's happening, and so.
Yeah.
It might be, but you'll feel great about it.
It might be, but then he reads the Lord's Prayer and you're like, okay, this just re-anchors us in, so.
Yeah. That's awesome. What is your favorite piece of technology?
Oh, you guys, I'm so not a tech person. My phone. I think it's just my phone, right? Like I live and die by it. Everything's there. There's
nothing wrong with that answer.
Yeah.
That is
totally
as
exciting as it gets.
All right. Number 4, what is a quote or a piece of advice that has just absolutely stuck with you throughout the years?
Yeah, this is an easy one. When I was in my early 20s, I was like firstborn A-type overachiever, like not your favorite person to work with in the workplace because I just kind of bulldozed everything. And I had a boss say to me, Jenni, if you want to work with people, you've got to learn to love them, to lead them. And I was probably in my early 20s and I was like, love them to lead them. I need to direct them to get the crap done they need to do so we can, like make things happen. And he was like, you need to love them to lead them. And it's never left me. And it's probably shaped every belief I have about leadership.
That's really good.
Yeah. All right. Last one. One thing that you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
First of all, I would say thank you for being faithful. Ministry is super hard, particularly in the last few years when everything that we thought we knew has been disrupted. So thank you for leading faithfully. I think that's so critical and so key. And then I would say kind of one of my just personal mantras is lead yourself well to lead others better. That you've got to be intentional in your health and development as a leader in order to have something to give to others. And so that intentionality of leading yourself well, being, and whatever that looks like for you, for every person that's going to be different, but knowing what do I need to lead me well, to best steward what God has entrusted and equipped me to do, and to do this well for the long haul. Because we need you in it. We need you in it for the long haul. We need you healthy and thriving. There's an incredibly lost world that is desperate for the hope of the gospel. And just being faithful to that, being a faithful steward of that, it's absolutely sacred work. And so just a big thank you to all the ministry leaders for what you're doing to serve and love people well.
Thank you, Jenni. That was, really good. And really, we echo the same thing. Just as we're closing here, where can people find out more about you, about Foresight Group, what you guys are doing? We'd love to our listeners to hear all of that.
For sure. Well, thank you again. It's so fun. We'd love to connect. We have a ton of free stuff on the website. So go to getforesight.com. That's the word get, G-E-T, the number 4, and the word sight, S-I-G-H-T, getforesight.com. Right on the front of the webpage, there is a free culture blind spot assessment. And I would encourage you, we talked a lot about culture today. Go take that assessment. It's a great way to just get a little glimpse of how are we doing? Like, we talked. Have you taken it, Casey?
Yeah. I have taken it. Yes. About and even about myself, and I've thought about it through the lens of my home, how I lead my family, my friends. I mean, like, everyone needs to take that assessment and go, oh boy, like I've got some blind spots. I've got some weaknesses. It's not discouraging. It's really helpful. Such a great tool.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, it's simple. It just takes a couple of minutes, but it just, again, that humble curiosity about, what might I need to pay a little bit more attention to as a leader? That's what it's designed to do. And then you can check out our blog and podcast and all those things from the website as well. And then I'm just at Jenni Catron on all social media. And so I'd love to connect with people there too.
Awesome. Well, make sure to connect with Jenni to certainly take that culture assessment. We're super thankful for your time, Jenni, and really thankful for everyone listening. If this was helpful, we'd love for you to leave a review, subscribe, share it with somebody that this might bless. And our goal again is to empower healthy churches. So the more we can do that, the more we want to do that and take any opportunity that we can. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.